the only show that's 3 dimensions away from the Haunted Mansion, the Eddie Murphy version, and the Haunted Mansion, the Lake of Stanfield version, crossing over and making the very Haunted Mansion. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at The Haunted Mansion 2003. It's directed by Rob Metcalf and written by David Berenbaum. The movie stars Eddie Murphy, Terrence Stamps, Wallace Shawn, Marsha Thompson, and Jennifer Tilly. The movie's essentially based on the ride. See, back in this time was the same year Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of Black Pearl came out, and Michael Eisner, who was the CEO at the time of Disney, was like trying to experiment making theme park out of rides, making movie adaptations of rides. And so Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge success, so why not try the Haunted Mansion? Because obviously they did it before back in the 90s with Tower of Terror, but this time around they really wanted to try and extend their goal with another ride. And so it seemed like, hey, Pirates paired off, so might as well try Haunted Mansion. Only, unfortunately, this was not a huge box office success, unfortunately. Although I do enjoy this movie, and I remember getting it on VHS when I was a kid for my birthday, and I watched it over and over again until the VHS broke, because VHS sucks. It rocked in the day, but it's really, once the VHS player dies, it's like, what's the point, the movie is essentially about a man who's a real estate agent. He said there's a guy selling the caretaker is selling this estate, this mansion, and so a real estate agent and his family come because the guy's obsessed. He's a work hungry guy who really, really loves his job. His religion is his job, and he's married with kids, but he never has time for them because he's a workaholic. He loves selling real estate. That's like he's born to do, and so of course, when he finds out, of course he screws up the anniversary with his wife, cause for his job. He puts his job before his family, and he screws up his anniversary with his wife. His wife's mad at him, so to make it up, he offers to take her on vacation. And when everything after that, when he gets an offer to sell this giant mansion, he takes it up and says, oh, he kind of tricks his wife and them to go on to the job with him. And then, of course, once he sells, and he basically wants to buy the house and sell it and everything. And, of course, turns out the house is actually, everyone there's a ghost, and the mansion is haunted. And so basically chaos ensures, and floating heads and talking statues and ghouls and ghosts and goblins, all that chaos brings to the Haunted Mansion. I love this movie, okay? I honestly had the VHS where they had always advertised Titanic documentary they did in front of the movie. I always remember that vividly. Like, that Bill Paxton says James Cameron presents Ghost of the Abyss. And it had Bill Paxton talking. It was like a whole documentary because Titanic was such a huge success. And it came out like in 99 or 98. And so James Cameron was still riding the success of Titanic at the time. And he made a documentary about Ghost of the Abyss, about Bill Paxton going underwater to see the Titanic. A whole freaking documentary about it, which was crazy. And so, that's so crazy about it. And, I digress. But yeah, that was the whole thing about, those bonus features. They had a bunch of trailers and stuff. And then you get to the Haunted Mansion on there. I always remember that. And if you have the DVD, I'm sure you can watch it still. I actually, before I watched it on Disney Plus, because I don't have the Blu-ray or DVD of it, because once I got rid of the VHS, I'm like, what's the point? And I watched it on Disney Plus, and I'm like, which is on Disney Plus, by the way, if you have Disney Plus. I went on YouTube and found the Haunted Mansion VHS opening, and I watched all the trailers, and then I went to watch it on Disney Plus. So that's what I did. I'm a dumbass sometimes. There are things I do like about this movie. I do like it. One thing I do like is, obviously, I like that it's scary themes. Basically, the opening of the movie it's really a tragedy. I've seen something like this before in Beauty and the Beast, but it's like this guy loses his wife at the beginning. His wife drinks poison and dies, and so basically he ends up killing himself. And I remember because I went to Disney World just this summer and for the first time, and I saw the Haunted Mansion ride, although it did break down on us before we got to we got to the ride part of it. Like when we went down to the elevator part where you're in the room and the room opens up and you see a dead person hanging and people screaming. I just remember seeing that, going, oh, that's from the ride where the guy hangs himself. Oh, I'm like that. There's a lot of nods and Easter eggs into the thing from what I saw. I actually did, just before I watched the movie, before I went to YouTube to look up the Bill Paxton documentary for Titanic. I went and typed in the Haunted Mansion full ride, and I watched the whole ride on YouTube. I know, shameless me, shameless. So I watched the whole documentary, and then I went and I started looking like, oh my god, see, the cemetery is just like from the ride, and those characters are from the ride, and the talking floating ball, crystal ball, is from the ride, which I already knew, always knew that was from the ride. And so there's just things about it that, like, this movie pays homage. There's a lot of Easter eggs that I really think that this movie does well. It does something well that I'm looking forward to, and I think that the new movie coming out does much better. It's gonna do, at least I'm hoping it's gonna be. But I think the story, I think honestly, and also this movie has a lot of scary things. Like, there's zombies in this movie. There is, like, it preys on your fears, almost, the mansion. There's even like a shot of Eddie Murphy, like, almost like everybody in this movie experiences their greatest fear. And there's also scenes of, like, at the end when the butler is revealed to be the villain of the movie, which you can see that come from a mile away. Like, he tries to send them to hell, and then, like, evil spirits show up and he gets dragged to hell. I'm like, damn! I would be shocked about it, but if I just saw this in Lord of the Rings like 3 months ago. So it's, like, really not shocking, but it's still pretty impressive for a Disney film. I mean, that just, to me, was really cool. And I also think the practical effects, like the zombies in this, are so practical. Nowadays they'd be all CGI and everything, but, like, there's zombies in this movie that I'm like, well done, especially for a Disney kids movie. This is great. And also, there's a lot of, the score is also beautiful, especially the opening credits has a beautiful, well done score. And I just love listening to the score. Like, I think the score in this movie is fantastic. And the acting from Terrence Stamps. Terrence Stamps, if you don't know, plays General Zod in Superman 1 and 2. And he's also, was the voice of Jor-El in Smallville. And he's the evil butler, the villain of the movie. He's a great actor in real life. And I really like him in this movie. He's fantastic. He plays evil so well. And he just really wants to be, I think, I can't, and maybe somebody can explain in the comments. I truly think the idea is to kill Eddie Murphy's wife to make them human again. I think that's what they're trying to do, or maybe they'll set their souls free if they kill her. I don't really know. I think that's what I rewatched this movie with my aunt, and me and my aunt were talking about going, I think that's what he wants to do, is he wants to just live again as a human. And I think he needs her soul for a soul kind of thing. I don't think that they're trying to cross over. That's what at least I saw into that. And also, Eddie Murphy's really great in this movie too. I really like Eddie Murphy. Like, I understand some people find him annoying in this movie because he doesn't give two shits about his family. He's just trying to sell this house. And sometimes he does kind of get me annoyed sometimes when he's just like, some dude's trying to get with my wife. And the house is not for sale. I'm very angry. I was like, well, who cares about the house right now? Right, and there's ghosts in this house also. Like, your wife is literally, and I'm like, I always think about, I'll talk about that in a second. But and also I like the guy that you would think is the villain of the movie, that is not the owner of the house, Edward Gracie, who kills himself, who's a ghost who kills himself, wants to be with his beloved. I wish there was more of him in the movie. Instead, he's just walking around most of the movie like a lovesick guy who wants to get with his wife, who really wants to get with Eddie Murphy's wife. And the acting is great from him. And I just wish there was more. And I like the end of him and Terrence Stamps confronting each other, where he's like, but I loved her. Was my love my mistake? He goes, yes! And he's like, I'm like, oh, wow, Terrence Stamps coming for it now. He's like, oh. And he's like, when he says, damn you. Terrence Stamps goes, damn you all to hell. I'm like, oh, yes, this is great. That's what I really like. That was, to me, great. When it gets, like, when British actors go really for it, they go for it. It's great. There are things I dislike. Like the end of the movie, like, alright, it's apparently Eddie Murphy sold the house, because at the end of the good guy gives him the deed to sell the house. I'm like, who would buy this house? Who? I understand it's gone now that the ghosts are gone, but also there's 2 plot holes right there. Okay, so if all the ghosts allegedly crossed over, why are there still talking statues and a crystal ball? And also, or some people could say, well, maybe only the ghost that you see crossed over, but everyone else is still there. So you're telling me there's still zombies on that place, and there's still, like, ghosts in the cemetery? If so, unless, like, Walmart or Amazon takes that place, no one's going to want to buy this for commercial reasons, unless it's for, like, no one's going to buy it for, like, a commercial reasons, unless it's for, like, a business or something. That's what I was, that kind of maybe like a big plot hole to me. The child acting also is kind of iffy because there's a scene when the little girl, when I was a little kid watching it, didn't bother me because I was a kid. But whenever the little girl's like, I think the ghost wants us to follow it. It does. It does. I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible acting right here. You know, that to me just kind of made it. Also, the Terrence Stamp's pretty predictable as the villain. Like, you could see him being the villain from a mile away. But I mean, yeah, and also the story did kind of feel like a video game as well. Like, it felt like almost like if you were playing a video game, like it's this all day. Oh, you have to go do this. Like anytime they send a character on a quest and then they send them on another quest, it feels like a video game. Like, okay, this is just a video game because we're all the main characters kind of like go in their own direction and do their own side quest, and it's like that just to me felt like a video game. Like especially when they was in the zombie level, I'm like, oh, this feels like a video game. So much so, like I could see easily Disney making this out of a video game. You know. There's not really enough time with the main characters, essentially. And that's what really bothered me. It's like, okay, I have to fight zombies. Okay, that's cool, but, like, okay, your wife's over here. After, like, you know, him and his wife get into a fight, he doesn't see his wife till the end of the movie yet. And I'm like, really? Unless he sees her through, like, the crystal ball, but he doesn't really talk to her. And also, there's also a plot hole. All right, so he essentially gets thrown out of the mansion and survives, by the way. And then the whole mansion shuts in on him where he can't get in or nothing because he tries even to bust in with a glass with a piece of the building, but it doesn't work. And so then eventually the crystal ball is able to float out here and talk to him. I'm like, how did the crystal ball get out of there? Like, literally, I would be asking that question, like, excuse me, how'd you get out of there so you could teach me how to get back in there? And instead, he does the most stupidest thing ever, drives his car into the building. And I'm like, how's he going to get out of the building? Never explains that, by the way. But yeah, I did enjoy this movie. This movie still is a great film. I recommend watching it around Halloween time because it's a fun movie to watch around Halloween time. I hope you do get to watch. I'm looking forward to watching the new one. I do really enjoy this movie still as a kid, even though with its flaws, I still enjoy it. It's a real fun movie. If I had to give this movie a grade, I would give it a B.
Dark spirits from the grave, come forth.
Don't you make no dark spirits come out while I'm sitting there. Wait till I leave before the dark spirits come out.
The Haunted Mansion.